nevertheless.
Okay.
Give me the microphone. Okay, start with the slides. So thank you very much for having me here. I will not repeat everything that you told us because a lot is quite similar, and you will see it. The only stuff I can say is we are even older than your company. We are 200 years old, and it makes us even more traditional, but sometimes maybe more playful with those kind of strategies. I had the pleasure to coach the Swiss Mobiliar to be there as we implemented AI. We had similar experiences with Watson technology, for example. We tried it out, we put it back, and I will share with you a little bit the insights that I could re-engineer from the 7 last years, from my discussions with the board. What kind of aspects were really important to convince them to continue on the journey? Maybe what did we do wrong, and why in the end I think we managed it. So basically the journey started quite early. We had the first teams around customer analytics quite early on, and if you think of an insurance company, we have actuaries. Actuaries are not anything else than people working with data, using statistical models to predict claims. So somehow it's in our DNA. But at this very beginning, it was not in the DNA of the company to use that technologies and that insight in other part of the business. It was just really focused on the actuaries. So we started with customer analytics, then we went to start a lab at DTH to work on that field. That was our former CEO. He was fascinated by those technologies, and he thought it would be good to find a first link to that with the lab. Then we moved on with first teams internally around analytics. It was by 2017. By 2015, we had the first one as well. And I think I was corrected during the lunch because it was not 2015, it was even 13 that we started with the lab. And then we moved on. I mean, from this very early time, we started to implement use cases. You can see it here. Our strategy was always to test the pudding with our people internally, so we never released anything from to the customer interface before we tested by ourselves. That's why we released the first stuff in the claim department to process the claim more efficiently and to help people handle claim that was quite complex, to put more people in times where you have spikes in the workload, to put more people in the claim department to work on that, because you can make it easier to handle if you can just write, oh, that happened yesterday, what is that for a kind of claim? And that's the kind of use cases we implemented that time. Then we moved on to release this kind of stuff to our customers, and even started to create upskilling programs. And we then started with ML operations. And I think this is something that we maybe have in common. We're starting by proving the value, and then added some more frames, some more context, some more processes, if you want, to make it work. And last year, we deployed a first instance of ChatGPT to our employees. Maybe a short anecdote about that. There was an interesting use case because I thought, hey, we have to do something. The guys came to even the CEO. The CEO was quite interesting to do that. So we got the funding. We got a lot of management buy-in. And they told me, you know what, we will just release ChatGPT for the employees. And I was like, I mean, after 8 years, that's your only idea. I mean, you just want to release that without any additional feature. And he was like, yeah, I think it's the right thing to do. And I must say, it was the right thing to do. And why is that? Because we had a huge adoption, like people that wanted to work with that. And we told them, it's here, and you can work with it, and you can use it for the business. They were just amazed and extremely thankful. And on the other side, there was about, I would say, 20 to 30% people asking us, what is that? And that was cool, because here in this room, we all know what it is. But then we realized, even if we are on that stuff for a couple of years, there are still people not really seeing it happening. And then it was interesting to us, just as an anecdote for this last case, it is not extremely complex, but it was quite interesting to see the reaction. What I would like to show you a little bit is the way we were organized along with the journey, because it changed. At the very beginning, we had these siloed teams, which makes it quite difficult to manage. Because we had, at that time, 2 or 3 teams. They were working on different use cases with different technologies, even a little bit fighting against each other. Then we moved to one kind of centralized data analytics department, kind of center of excellence. And at that time I took over, and I realized quite quickly that it was not the end of the journey, because with this kind of organization in place, you have too less buy-in from the business. They have no skin in the game. They will let you work as long as it's not too nasty for them. And as soon as it gets nasty, they will just step back. And that's why we implemented a next step. We call it the hub and spoke model. And the first way was not to put the model in place. It was to build one stable AI team consisting of data scientists, business people, software developers, working together on the long term. And then we defined, put it on the paper, our hub and spokes model. Like we have a central hub, which is responsible for the discipline, for the technologies we use for maintaining the relationship with the IT department, looking at the architecture, doing all the nasty work. And we have the spokes, implementing use cases and then try to be a little bit faster and to create value. And in the end, we are scaling this model right now. We just launched 2 additional teams in this field, proving that this model is, I think, a good model for our company. May not work for every company, but for our company, it's good stuff. So, regarding to the board, I will share you some experiences I had in 3 different perspectives. The first one is this perspective on value expectation. I think it's the driving force. You mentioned it before, focus on value, value, value. I agree. And I would add, it's maybe important to define what kind of value. I assume you all know that data is only potential, but data is a lot of cost, especially in an insurance company. You have to care about it, you have to protect it, make sure that nobody will access to it, it costs a lot. Creating information out of that, like leads, for example, is just an opportunity. If nobody uses it, then you have no value. And basically, the stuff and the difficult stuff is to create this value, using it for doing meaningful in the business. Unfortunately, at least in my company, and I suspect in the entire financial industry, at least in the insurance industry, there is a kind of idea that technology is providing efficiency. And only that. And that's why I always come with this picture, because it reminds me of this movie where it's somewhere in the past, something happened, making the path today quite difficult to work on or to move on. And I think for us, it's this idea. A lot of managers in the board do associate technology with efficiency. And I'm sorry to say, but it's just not true for that what is coming, especially Gen AI, because it works and it delivers on several different dimensions we could call value, like ideation, helping you be more creative, and of course a little bit efficiency, but it's maybe not the key driver. And what I like to do is to think in simple models, but that help to separate a little bit the complexity of the problem. So I was quite amazed by listening to your example, because I could reverse engineer that your company, Caterpillar, is maybe focused on product. Your premium product, so basically you work on that, and all the example you provided with the battery, the stuff, shows me that you are trying to use this technology to leverage some capabilities that help you to push your product. That's great, and that's maybe one reason why you are successful with that. In our company, it's different. We are not focused on product, because otherwise you would know, because we do not differentiate on products, we differentiate on customer intimacy. Clearly, we are close to our customers, we are present in each and every canton in Switzerland. We speak their language, we speak their dialect even. If they want to claim something, we speak the local Swiss German dialect. So we try to be extremely close to our customers. And the point I had about that is, at the very beginning, my manager told me, please deliver on efficiency. It was quite clear for him, deliver on that, bring me figures, how many steps can we save in this process, how many people can we save? And I was like, yeah, the problem is the strategy of the company is focused on customer intimacy. So maybe that's not exactly the main focus I should have. And I remember that moment where I went to the head of products and told him, you know what, you have to help me because I think we should implement AI in the claim system to make it easier for people to claim, because that's what we want. We want to be easy to help people. And finally, we succeeded at doing that, and then we were able to prove the value, and the value was quite easy to show because we changed the process and it was easier. We had more people claiming digitally, and they were still happy. And that was a way to show them, okay, you know, yeah, efficiency is one value, but in the end, there are other values that may be important as well. So first consideration about this value, perspective on value. Then I think one extremely interesting point is the perspective on the adoption. And there is just one stuff that is important. Please keep skeptical. Even today, even after 7 years, I'm still extremely skeptical, especially when I speak with IT architects, to be honest. Sorry if there are any in this room, but it's always difficult. The game there is, please try to understand what is going on. You all know this movie, Inception. We don't really know where we are here, because the thing is still rolling. If it falls, we're in the reality. If it doesn't fall, we are still in a dream. And that's a little bit the point about that. What I could recognize during the journey is that you have always this three perspective, a little bit crossing, sometimes being aligned, sometimes not. The red one is the one coming from the data scientist. Let's do a local prototype. Let's do something concrete. Let's do a first use case. Okay, great. The business guys will tell you, AI is great, we should do more of that. We should improve the way we work with customers with that. Yeah, okay, everything fine. And IT guy usually will tell you, we need a proper architecture and we need to clean the data, okay? And that may sound aligned on the surface. Usually, what lays behind is something different. The data scientist thinks, after this prototype, I'm going to the next one, okay? The business guy will implicitly say you, I mean, I like AI until the point where I have to change something in my processes. After that, it's over. And the IT guy actually tells you, I have no clue about AI. So I would like to be part of the journey so that I can learn. Don't expect any help. Okay? That's what I experienced 7 years ago. It's a little bit better now, to be honest. It's a little bit provocative for the sake of it, but still, it can be quite challenging to align these point of views. And there are several tricks. Of course, you have to implement it to show the value, to accept that, and not to work too much on the previous version of this stuff. I mean, just to accept that people will not align as easily as you may believe. And that is especially true in a company like Swiss Mobiliar, where we are traditionally organized. We have a running business model which is working. There is currently no real market disruption in Switzerland, so meaning, you know, you have to go with the flow. You can push transformation, but the sense of urgency is maybe not that high, as high as it could be. So basically, that's an important perspective on this stakeholder adoption. And the last one is a perspective on the discipline, the field, AI itself. The first thing, if you have to correct this sentence here, AI is not a project, it's a process. If you think of AI as being a project, it will be extremely difficult, because it's difficult to build on expertise if you just work on siloed use cases. What we had to implement is a way to look at it as it's a process. It's one capability. We take data, we extract information, we create value, and we can do that in several processes in the company. Always focused on this customer intimacy stuff, but still with the view on it's stable, we have people working on that for a long term. With that in mind, you get a lot of skin in the game from different departments. For example, for the claim department, we have one AI team in claims. We started it by 2018. They are still working together. They implemented use case on use case in one specific domain field, but still, it's long-term, it's not project. And maybe something about that, to go a little bit deeper into that. It's important to deliver value, yes, because otherwise you will never get funded on the long term. But it's also important to work on expertise, developing expertise. And sometimes maturity, you know, increasing the maturity of your organization regarding this technology. And that sounds often quite theoretical, and I tried this morning in the train to put it a little bit more concrete. Like for me, increasing maturity means that you have a proven, not theoretical, ability to predict quite accurately what is the outcome of a potential project. And if you cannot do that, you have no expertise. In my company, I would say we are good at it. We can predict you what will be the value. We can tell you how we will maintain the component as we have put it in. We can help you with the risk. We have an ethical framework in place to assess the project. So we can tell you quite in advance a lot of stuff about the project and the potential outcome out of it. And the second stuff is I strongly advise you to describe your target operating models. Because it's not, I mean, coming back to the board, I mean, there is nothing worse for people in the board than having the feeling that this stuff is not organized. And I had some discussion in the past where it was extremely cool to be able to take the target operating model out of the shelf, so put it on the table and tell people that's the way we are organized. That's the role of the data scientist, that's the role of the IT, that's the role of the business, that's the role of the hub. And because it's like that, we strongly advise you to do this step. But as long as you stay in a kind of implicit mode of working, like, yeah, you know, we work quite agile with the business together, just forget that. By the first time they will have to cut some budget, you're at risk. So have a proper structure, but afterwards, I think it's the similar way as at Caterpillar, we prove the technology, we prove the value, and then successively we install, you know, a little bit of more organization, more structure, more framing, in order to keep it close and consistent and coherent. I have a last learning nugget, because I mentioned it before. AI or data architecture is not a strategy, okay? And it's extremely important. It may be a strategy for your IT department, but it's not a strategy for your group. So, thank you very much. Was quite happy to be here, and I will be happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much, Jérôme. As stated earlier, for the people that are in the room 5A, if they have questions, please come here. There are not seats, but you can ask the question. Otherwise, question from the team. Yep.
So thanks a lot for sharing the insights. You have spoken a lot about the value. And how do you measure it?
Yeah, quite easily. If we implement something for the sales, then we will measure usual like conversion rates digitally. For the claim process, we measured two different indicators because there, as I mentioned, we were not seeking for efficiency. So we measured, first of all, the conversion rate in the digital process of claiming after we introduced the component, which was higher. And then we measured, or we looked at the net promoter score of people, you know, having used this process. And then we were able to show that the figures were going the right way, and that's the way how we related to the strategy. Maybe a short note on that. Some of you may ask themselves, how do I know how we are focused? Because usually people do not really know how they create value for their customers. And I always tell people it's easy to know. You know it from the moment where you see people running out in the company, quite worrying because one key indicator went down. Look at this key indicator, map it on that stuff, and you will know what is your strategy. In my company, it's clearly the net promoter score.
Thank you.
You mentioned that the added value of LLMs for Mobilier was ease of claim filling by users, and you mentioned that one of the advantages is knowledge of the language of users. Did you fine-tune LLMs to better understand Schweizerdeutsch?
No, we did some prototypes in the past, but it was not really working extremely well. But maybe one additional remark onto that. I mean, this is one use case. What I wanted to highlight is we use AI to make the claiming process more convenient. That was the goal. And basically, when we look at the use cases, we try to find some use cases that we can relate to this overall strategy of being closer to our customers. So even if we, in the end, make the process of claiming easier for our employees, we expect them to reinvest that into the way they deal with people or with customers.
You talked about the maturity level and also about learning sessions and other tools you used for the company or for employees. What is your perception on the maturity level of the board? And do you also follow the KPI regarding the maturity level of the board? How do you work on that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think oh, it's interesting. We could do a leadership exercise on that. I think at the very beginning, the board was not really aware of all that stuff, but 7 years ago, coming back there, and the CEO was extremely keen to look at that and learn that. And I think basically he infected all the board. We now have a CEO, which is a former actuary. She's quite interested into that as well. But what I see is always the same stuff. It's a little bit driven by the CEO in our company. But I would still say the board learned a lot because we went back, we showed them, what we were able to do. And I see the discussion went clearly away from we should do only efficiency to, hey, we could use that here, how to improve the customer experience in that process. So there was an evolution, clearly an evolution in the last couple of years. Yeah.
Perfect. A big thank you, Jérôme, for your presentation.
Thank you.